may not help just the muscle building of the established muscle, but may make that a bigger muscle potential to become larger.
Hi, I'm Lee Labrada, and I am here with my friend and colleague, Dr. Dan Gartney. And today we are going to be talking about a very exciting new supplement called Ursolic Acid. Dan, welcome. And I wanted to ask you about Ursolic Acid because I know that you do a lot of research, and I know that you are studied up on this ingredient and that it could be of real benefit to our viewers. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, I'd be happy to. You know, it's real exciting because it came to attention about 3 years ago when they did some studies on mice and looked at the genes that were turned on by ursolic acid, which is naturally occurring. And they found out that the genes that were turned on in these mice build muscle and burn fat, reduce fat. Of course, that's a holy grail.
Sure.
But it's also the promise you hear about so many things.
Right.
And it's in mice. I mean, I guess we need skinnier mice, but still. So I followed it. It seemed real interesting, and I did find a source for it, and I tried it for a little while. And, you know, it was hard to find what the right dosing was. So initially, I didn't see any response way back when. More research came out, and it became a little more applicable, and the findings were a little more specific. And then thankfully now some human trials have come out of Korea, of all places.
Interesting.
Yeah. And what they found was when they looked at specific genes that were turned on in conditions of muscle atrophy, ursolic acid combated those.
So these were people that were actually losing muscle?
Well, this was tissue that was put in conditions like anorexia or cancer.
And it kept them from losing more muscle tissue?
It combated those genes from being turned on, the bad genes,
Okay.
and helped turn on the good genes, the protective genes. So there is something happening at that level, even in human tissue.
Very interesting stuff. Now, you had mentioned that it's naturally sourced, correct?
It is sourced.
Okay.
There's many botanical sources of it. Everybody's heard the apple peel story because that's what the newspapers like to put out. An apple peel-based product, or an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Rosemary and many other of your herbs contain a high amount.
It's a naturally occurring acid.
And it's widely available
Okay.
in dietary sources. And following this, you know, I re-entered using it to follow my own body composition, looking at specific dosings.
How much were you using?
You know, the original product was very hard to say because the sourcing was not necessarily from one that I knew was well controlled.
Okay.
So I'm going to go off the product. It's actually your product that I've had access to use now. And I was using 450 milligrams per meal and saw some very good body composition changes from that.
So 450 milligram capsule, like taken before each meal?
Correct. Three of your capsules before each meal.
Okay, and how many times a day were you doing that?
You know, I eat 5 to 6 times a day, so in my case, I was taking it probably before 4 of the meals.
Okay, and what kind of results did you see?
What I saw was a leaning effect. You know, all the studies and all the hoopla were really about the muscle building effect. And what I saw was 2 things that were really remarkable to me. And every bodybuilder knows that their body is a science of one. You can read the results, you can read everybody else's experience. When you try something, it's how it affects you.
Right.
And I didn't see so much mass gain, but what I saw that was when I overate carbohydrates, I tend to be very sensitive to them, I didn't get the water retention effect, the puffiness that I would get. And you may have noticed I do like to overeat carbohydrates from time to time. The other thing I saw was that even when my diet was controlled, I saw better leaning occurring during that time. So I was real excited because it seemed that in my experience, at the doses I was using, I saw the fat reducing properties of it coming through. There was a presentation at a conference and it talked about ursolic acid activating Mtor, which you may remember is a muscle protein synthesis pathway in the muscle cell.
Right.
And in this case, a single high dose of ursolic acid was provided, 3 grams, which is...
Was this a human trial?
It was a human trial. And there was a delay, but after a period of 4 hours, the Mtor pathway was more responsive in the group that took the ursolic acid. One thing that was very interesting about that presentation was it was revealed that ursolic acid is slowly released from the intestines, and it takes about 4 hours to reach its peak concentration. So what I learned from that was for a mass building or repair, recovery, rebuilding supportive effect, I need to take it about 2.5, 3 hours before my workout if I'm going to take a higher dose.
So that it'll be into your system at the appropriate time vis-a-vis when you finish your workout.
Exactly. If you take it when you finish your workout, it's not going to come in until your muscle's starting to relax.
Right.
And has been through that recovery
Okay,
period.
so then if viewers want to take ursolic acid, they should take it prior to meals, and especially prior to that meal that comes before the workout, right?
Right. Not a pre-workout drink, but a pre-workout meal, so about 2.5, 3 hours before. Now, the human data that's coming from Korea is very interesting. It's showing, again, muscle strength, not necessarily muscle growth increases, but again, a leaning effect in the people taking the ursolic acid. So they went a little bit further and looked at what was occurring in the system. And IGF-1 rate went up, which is actually a muscle building hormone typically.
Interesting.
But it's very important to muscle growth. Now, a bench level or a cell level study came out just very recently, which this gets a little bit nerd exciting, not so much something that the bodybuilder may get excited about. But they looked at ursolic acid and ursolic acid in combination with leucine
Oh, really?
to see how it affected myoblast to myotube fusion.
Okay, now
what that means...
yeah, because I want to know what a myotube and myoblast is here.
Sounds like it'd be delicious, doesn't it? You've heard the term satellite cell.
Right.
And satellite cells are little stem cells or precursor cells that are around our muscle that go to the muscle to help it grow.
Okay, so whenever we work out, we stimulate these satellite cells, right?
We do. We stimulate them, and they're kind of a quiet resting pool until we stress them.
Okay.
And when we do that, they change from the stem cell into something that's called a myotube, which is a more mature form of that cell. That myotube will go up to a muscle cell, attach to it, and donate its nucleus, its DNA, to the muscle cell.
Sounds pretty complex.
But you know what's important about that? Your muscle cells are very unique in terms of the fact that how big they can get. It's dependent upon how many nuclei they have. It's one of the few, there's only a few cells that are of this type that are multinucleated. Muscle cell potential growth is capped or limited by the number of nuclei.
Wow.
When you're able to add one or add many, you've allowed that muscle cell to have the potential to grow bigger.
That's very interesting. And you're saying that the supplement may actually help to do that.
Was shown in this study to do it. Now, what was interesting is they compared it to leucine, and they showed those two were about equivalent in this effect, and when you combined them, it was a greater effect.
So almost synergistic?
Yeah, so again, too, for providing ursolic acid, so it's peaking when you're getting leucine in that post-workout phase, may not help just the muscle building of the established muscle, but may make that a bigger muscle potential to become larger over time.
Okay, to summarize for our viewers then, if one were to supplement their diet with ursolic acid, take it prior to meals, but especially the meal before the workout, not the pre-workout shake, so to speak,
Right.
but the meal, the whole food meal that you have, say 2.5 hours before the workout.
And that's how I do it.
Okay, and then after the workout, then we hit the whey isolate shake and the leucine.
Exactly.
And that's how you get that leucine and ursolic acid combination.
That would be the best bang for the buck.
Okay, Dan, that's really, really interesting, and thanks for sharing that with us. I'm with Dr. Dan Gartney. I'm Lee Labrada, and I would like to invite you to come to labrada.com and to check out our newsletter. Over 100,000 people are receiving it and using it every week to learn about nutrition, training, motivation. I hope that you'll do that, and I hope that you will join us for our next tip.